I think if you look at last year as a starting point, I think it was a really good year for IT in general. Um, I think many companies, many manufacturers, distributors, the resellers, I think many had a very solid year last year, and that was particularly nice to see given the previous year and the
Yeah.
challenges in business across the board, but IT in particular. So this year, I think that there's some optimism that we should see the trend continue. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for the refresh cycle to continue. So far this year has started out a little softer than we would have liked, but still growth year over year, and certainly we anticipate seeing that continue throughout the rest of this year. So we think that tech data in particular, we're executing well in the marketplace right now, and we feel as though that execution is translating into growth for us. I mean, several years ago, the U.S. business started the Advanced Infrastructure Solutions business, and that's really geared around the data center, building out data center solutions for our resellers. The team has done an outstanding job on that. An example perhaps would be a few years ago, we didn't have VMware in our portfolio, and today they're a significant vendor for us, strategic vendor, and as well as the other significant cornerstone vendors that play a huge part in the data center. So that whole piece of our business has grown very well. And I'm not surprised that Rick and Greg are really trying to accelerate that. Some of the expertise that we bring and the technical support and the talent of our team has really translated into increased market share. As an example, I'll use VMware as an example, but it's not the only one. When we launched VMware, before we did, we had something like 500 VSPs all certified, ready to go before we even launched the products. So, I mean, we're making a commitment to the data center, the Advanced Infrastructure Solutions business, and we're kind of aligning behind it. That applies as well to our Latin American business. Each one of the countries is working on changing the mix of their business and getting more focused on the data center. I mean, I think it's constantly changing, Robert. So, I mean, we certainly wouldn't be wanting to grow in a part of the business that we anticipate is declining. So I think there's lots of growth. There's more decisions that the customers are going to be making. And I think this ties very closely into what role tech data plays in the cloud solutions today. And the data center is going to be an important one, whether that's going to be helping to support public or private clouds. People are still going to need to invest in technology. Well, I think that there's a few things that we can play in a few areas, and we've crafted out our strategy around that. We're not going to be building a knock and competing against our resellers, but we do want to be an enabler. And the enabler can be in the form of software as a service. We think we've got some very cool tools that will help enable that part of the marketplace. And then I do believe that being an enabler around the data center and providing technology solutions for the cloud will absolutely be an important part of our go forward plan. I mean, I think that oftentimes I look at the IT industry, and while we're the agents of change for our customers, many times we're the worst ones when it comes to changing ourselves. And I think that there's more acceptance that the cloud solutions are certainly going to play a bigger part in the future. You have many key vendors. In fact, all of the key vendors are all coming out with their versions of how their companies are going to play or participate in the cloud, and what they're going to do, what their strategy is. And now they're all a little bit different. HP's is different than IBM's. IBM's is different than Cisco's. Cisco's is different than VMware. So there's a little bit of a different spin on all of them. But they all kind of tie into the same applications. Yeah, well, I do have a bit of a perspective from both sides of the ledger there, and I strongly believe, and I think our management team believes, that the the local management has to have accountability and be involved in the business. And I think it makes it more difficult for us here in Clearwater to be more involved in the Canadian business and understanding the dynamics that they're dealing with. I would rather have our leadership team make the decisions that are necessary for them to run the business and grow the business and be accountable for it. And Rick and the team have continued to do a great job at that, so I'm not sure that's a formula that we really want to mess around with.
And is it the same sort of structure with the Latin American subsidiaries?
Yeah, in each one of the Latin American countries, we have a managing director, and they roll up into our general manager for Latin America, who's based in Miami. And he has the accountability to make sure that each one of the countries are executing and delivering. But the subtleties of doing business in Peru are much different than the challenges of the growth market in Brazil. So, local management, local accountability, it's a formula that seems to have worked for us. And I think that from our perspective, I think that there's a core part of the business that there's always an expectation around. One is you're going to support them and service them well, provide them with credit and credit options. And today, I think that the credit piece is still a very important part of the whole decision-making process. And I think we differentiate ourselves on how we're supporting our VAR customers. And then I think we have to listen to the VARs. We're looking at tools. What tools are we implementing to try and improve their productivity, help them leverage their business, and then relationships. So relationships are ways that we can have our VARs tap into the intellectual talent and capital that we have at Tech Data and use that to help them grow and support their customers.